Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Dr. Joey interviews Christian business professionals just like you to discover their secrets for working faith positive in a negative world. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett.
Faith Positive Nation, if you're listening, you don't have the benefit of seeing what those of us who are watching today see, and that is that I, for some strange reason, have a tie on. I never do that. Usually it's a Hawaiian shirt, polo shirt, sometimes a button down, right? But today I'm wearing a tie because notice what color this tie is. Everybody together now? Orange. That's right, because today's guest worked for a company called Orange. Not red, not green, not blue, not purple, but Orange. Wonder how they decided on the name of that company. Let's find out, okay? Kristen Ivy is the Executive Director of Messaging at Orange and the Director of the Phase Project. Now, what is the Phase Project? You're a Christian business professional. You may have children at home. Some of them may be older and have come back to live with you, right? Or some of them may still be of the normal age of living with you at home, right? They all go through phases. In fact, I'm going through a phase today. I'm wearing a tie, right? So this is my tie phase. We all go through phases in life, developmental stages where certain things are appropriate and other things are inappropriate. And today's guest, right, helps us understand what phase our child is in and how we can best respond to that. In fact, she's co-authored 4 books. One of them is entitled, It's Just a Phase. And I've got to tell you that I said that to my wife once when one of our daughters were younger, and she immediately swirled around and said, well, I'm going through a phase too. So, we're all going through some kind of phase. We're going to find out all about the Phase Project too. Today's guest and her husband, Matt, are currently parenting their 3 amazing children through these phases. So she will bring to us field research, not just something she read about in a book. At Orange, our guest today has played an integral role in the development of the elementary, middle school, and high school curriculums and has shared her experiences at speaking events across the country. Who is our guest, you say, Faith Positive Nation? Help me welcome Kristen Ivy. Kristen Ivy from Orange, welcome. We're glad that you're here. And why in the world did somebody name this company Orange?
Do you want the answer for that question?
I do. I want to know.
So good to be here with you today. And there is a reason for the color for everyone at Orange. Actually, it was our way just to represent 2 influences combining. You have the color red and yellow that mix together to make orange, and that's our way of suggesting in the same way, if you want to have an influence in a kid's life, you need 2 primary influences. One is the light of the church, which is yellow, and one which is the heart and the warmth of the home, which we represent with red. You put those 2 together, you have a bright, vibrant color, orange, to influence the next generation.
Bright, vibrant color, orange. I'm loving that. That's awesome. So it's yellow for the light of the church. So you're the light of the world, Jesus said, right? Then we got red for the heart of the home, right? And those 2 come together and it's orange. Beautiful. I knew there was a rational, loving explanation for that. I love it. That's great. That's great. So you are the Executive Director of Messaging. What does your average workday look like?
Oh, goodness, my average workday, it changes every single day, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful blessing to have something that's so, creative and always changing. But in general, I oversee all of the content development of Orange, and we are a nonprofit organization that provides curriculum and resources to church leaders who want to influence the next generation to help kids and teenagers have a better future. So we produce over 1 million words a month in curriculum resources for preschoolers, children, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and parents. And so all of those resources together, they let me take a look at the words. And so I always like to say they let me, influence the words, maybe not the numbers of the organization. You would not want to put me in charge of your family budget.
That's what Matt's for, right?
But if you want a mission statement or if you want a bottom line, I can and work on that. So I get to work with creators and writers and directors and producers and all kinds of fun people to put together words that will help influence the next generation.
Wonderful. So these million words a month pass through you and you paint them orange and send them on their way, right?
Yes, it's a fun job. It's never a dull moment. So some of those words turn out into video products. Some of them turn into publications and books. Others into activity pages that kids are doing every week.
Oh,
So
sweet.
very fun.
That's great. So some of those words have wound up in 4 books that you co-authored: Playing for Keeps, Creating a Lead Small Culture, It's Just a Phase, and 0 to 1. So, I've written a few books myself. People say, which one's your favorite? It's like asking me to choose between my daughters. So I'm going to turn the question on you. Which of those 4 books is your favorite?
Oh, wow. That is, each one serves a different audience and a different purpose.
I know.
But I think the thing I'm most excited about is actually a publication that just came out.
New book?
It's a new, I don't know, should I say library? It's 18 books.
18. Okay, you're
right.
just a bit of an overachiever, right?
Right. I mean, it's a little embarrassing, honestly, to say. It's 18 books.
Hey, be proud.
But it's a project that we've been working on for at least 4 years, probably in the making. And it's connected to the phase research and phase project and this idea of everybody going through a phase. And so I am really excited about them because I think that they're very, very simple resources that can help every parent win with their kid right now. So instead of having to sort through all the information that's out there on parenting, we kind of already did that. We took years of getting focus groups in a room of teachers, counselors, health professionals, everybody who's working with kids and teenagers to really distill down the important pieces of information that a parent would need to really engage their child in the year of life that they're in presently.
Okay, so what is the age span that these 18 books cover?
0
to 18.
Okay,
I like to ask easy questions. Yeah. So here are the developmental phases that you can expect your child, the things you can expect your child to experience during 0 to 1, 1 to 2, et cetera, et cetera.
That's right. This is a project where we took a look a while back and said, you know what, you're actually given a limited number of weeks with your child. From the day your child is born until they graduate high school, there's 936 weeks, kind of approximately, that you have as a parent. And you can't add to that number of weeks and it will pass by. It's just easy for us as adults to be living on our adult timetable. We're thinking about our adult world, and we miss that things are moving so quickly for our children in those years. And you only get, 1 year with your kindergartner while they're in kindergarten.
That's it.
And then they're in first grade and you never get to know them as a kindergartner again. And so we think there's distinctive opportunities that if every parent understood those opportunities, that they can lean in and leverage those to help set their kid up for a better future. So that's where the passion has been for me lately, I guess, over this last year. So I guess it would be my favorite right now.
Yeah, there you go. 18 books are my favorite, Joey. I love it. One for each year. That's beautiful.
They're short reads.
They're short reads? Yeah. Okay. So our ADD generation can pick it up and get through it pretty quickly, right? So here's what my kids should be doing now, at this age. And man, that's an incredible resource because, we used to live, the world used to be a lot smaller. And so we stayed closer together and to family members and things like that. And that kind of wisdom was passed down, right?
Yes.
So a mom said to a daughter, well, when you were this age, here's what you were doing, and here's what I was doing with you. And now, man, we live everywhere and we're scattered all over the planet. So what you've really done is collect the wisdom of the ages, along with some great Jean Piaget and some others, right?
Absolutely.
And really plugged it all into a phenomenal resource. That's great. My favorite story about adults living on adult time, which I love that phrase, by the way, I'm going to borrow that. Adults living on adult time rather than kids' time, is whenever my family takes me shopping which will be wedding dress shopping tomorrow for my younger daughter.
Wow, that's a big shopping experience.
Well, yeah, toss up a little prayer for me. It's my first
Yeah.
experience. Not the first daughter to get married, but my first experience. So I need to know whether to say I like it or I don't. Actually, I probably just say, well, what do you think?
What do you
honey?
think?
How does it feel, right? But whenever they take me shopping, I see these parents with their preschoolers and the kids walking like this, right? Now, I want you to imagine, Kristen, right, that you're spending the better part of 4 hours walking around like this.
With your hand above your head. Yep.
And getting jerked, right? Because you're running just to keep up with the parental steps. And to me, that's what it seems like we do to kids today. We want them to grow up so fast and hurry up and get potty trained, hurry up and walk, hurry up and potty train, hurry up and drive. Why are we so insistent on rushing kids through everything today?
Well, our pace of life is very quick. I mean, there's so much activity that's going on. I think as a mother of 3 kids myself, I have an 8-year-old, 5 3/4. She will tell you 5 3/4.
Not 5 1/2, 5 3/4.
Right. She wants to make sure we know. And
she's the middle child, right?
She's the middle child. That's right.
She's got to be specific.
She's got to make her place in the world. And then a 2-year-old. And, just between our 3 children, keeping up with school activities and making sure each kid has some friends in their life. So we're trying to connect with them, with their peers and relationships and help them, realize their potential in some other ways. It's just the sheer demand on our family right now. It keeps us all very, very busy. So that season of life where you're parenting is a busy season of life. And as an adult, you've always got this checklist that you're going through. So you're making sure that they've got their lunches. You're making sure that you've worked through their transportation schedule, their school schedule. They've got their homework in their backpack. There's so many different things that are going on in your brain. And so we just tend to operate in this season of busyness, I think.
Right. But now as Christians, we should be different in our parenting. Yes? Right?
Yes.
I mean, we should be too. We should. That's not a great word, but we've got a leg up on what really makes for a good life.
Right.
Because we've got biblical understanding. We've got the Holy Spirit with us, right? So in the midst of all that busyness, we insert Psalm 46:10, right? Be still and know that I'm God. I recently posted out a meme of that on my personal Facebook page. The thing blew up. I mean, I can't tell you how many people said, oh, it's my favorite verse. Okay, how well do you live that?
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So, in fact, we even put a free 4-series coaching session on our website, Be Still and Know. Just because people demand that. Our coaching clients from all over the country just demand, how do I be still and know? So how do I, as a parent, in the midst of all this busyness, regardless of the phase, how do I be still and know that God is God and incarnate the presence of Christ to my children?
Wow. I think that is a daily challenge for any parent. And it works different, I think, depending on your personality, depending on your wiring. If you're an early morning person, maybe you wake up and you try to set your alarm for an extra 15 minutes, 20 minutes before you have to go wake the kids up so that you can have some stillness even before you start the day.
Yeah, with your own
maybe
time.
You just have toddlers in the home and it's a crazy season. I remember, as a mom, there were moments when I would go to the bathroom when I didn't even have to go to the bathroom, just to close the door for a second, take a deep breath and go, okay, God, help me get through the rest of this, the patience and the grace and the forgiveness and the mercy and all the things that I need to embody right now for my kids. I think we have to just carve out the spaces wherever we can find them, at night, in the morning, in the middle of the day, whether it's during a work break and you're going off for lunch and you pause for just a minute to recenter and remind yourself, hey, keep the things that matter most in front of you and let the rest of it kind of let it go. And we know that it will get taken care of and we will get to all of those things. And there's so much good work to be done. And, as Christians, we're always about doing good work. But sometimes the good work has to pause for a second.
Well, if we're going to keep doing it, it stands to reason that just as we stop our vehicles and fuel them back up, right, then we stop our lives and fuel our spirits back up, right?
Right.
By the way, my wife used to say whenever she went to the bathroom, that was like a magnet for the girls. They would find her.
Always. I'm a little fingers reaching under
Yeah.
the door, and banging on it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it just needed 3 minutes. Just
That's right. Well, we're at the phase now where grand dogs do that to us. We don't have grandchildren, grand dogs who knows their way in. Yeah. So how can parents best, in the midst of all this busyness, and we're all working ourselves to death today, it seems like, right? How can we best incarnate Christ's presence to our kids? I hear you say, first of all, we take care of ourselves. It's kind of like when you're on an airplane, they tell you when the mask drops down, put it on yourself before you put it on the child beside you, because if you pass out, you can't help the child then, right? So your spirit has to stay vital and vibrant as well. So that's the first thing. But then I'm assuming these 18 books also tell us how to incarnate Christ's presence to children at different ages that are developmentally appropriate for them.
We do. Actually, we've taken in the back of each guide, the third section, kind of the end of the guide, takes critical issues that we think are important to talk about with your kids at every phase of life. So some of those are technology or sexuality or healthy habits, just their own physical health. But one of those, and obviously...
Getting middle school boys to put on deodorant, is that what you're talking about?
That is in the guide, absolutely.
Not that I ever had that problem.
Things that matter.
Boy,
right?
You stink. You put this on. Right? I think that was my dad's way of dealing with it.
But one of the primary things, and right up front, we want to anchor everything to, is authentic faith. And so we define authentic faith as trusting in Jesus in a way that changes the way I see myself and treat others, the world around me. And so if you want your kid to grow up and have an authentic faith that really is their own, that they've owned and they own it for themselves, then if you back up, we identified the things that you can be doing every single year for your child to move toward that goal. And we actually scripted that out as conversations. So, for example, there's just different things you might be saying to your kid at each phase that would connect with where they are developmentally, what they're dealing with socially and relationally, what their felt needs are, but that would open up a conversation for you in the everyday moments of life to have faith conversations, things that are pushing them toward owning their own personal and authentic faith.
Wow, as opposed to an inherited faith, which seems to get shoved down so many children's throats, right, and into their lives when they're small, and then when they start to get into middle school and their peer group becomes more important than their family group, where's the faith then? So I love the way you're describing authentic faith.
Yes. And we actually, there's a couple of other pieces that are baked into this, I guess I would say phase approach to parenting your kid with authentic faith. And one would be just to take advantage of the daily times that you have, because so often we think that big things have to happen in a big moment. We're going to have a big conversation and deliver, the State of the Union on having faith.
The Gettysburg Address, a Sermon on the Mount or something, right?
And really, faith is acquired in small moments over time. It's the routines that we practice every day and every week in our families that have a tremendous impact. And oftentimes we look into Moses' model when he gave the address to Israel before entering the promised land.
Oh, cool.
And when he said, you should impress these things upon your children.
Deuteronomy 6:4-9, the Shema, right?
The Shema, absolutely.
Right.
And his strategy for that was simple. It was talk about them as you walk along the road, as you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep at night, as you sit around the table having meals together.
Put them on your forehead, right? That's what he said. Put these scriptures there.
Make it routine. And so we kind of think the same thing is true for us today. We identified 4 times. They change at each life stage. So your times with your baby or your preschooler might look different. With your preschoolers, you're probably still giving them a bath. And so bath time is one of the key times. That isn't true as they get older. So there's different key times that we identified that parents can really leverage to make an impact in their kids' life: mealtime and drive time and morning time. Because if you think about those routines, those are key times and moments when you can influence your kids' faith.
Yeah, and some of those routines surprise you, or let me back up, make it more personal. It surprised me in doing that because, the name of our company is Listen to Life Too. And so we're all about listening to life or what God has to say to us that day. And it is in those small moments. It's in those tiny times when big things happen, right? Because small hinges swing big doors. with our younger daughter, our older daughter, mealtime, it was always when we unpacked the day with her, right? And she was chatty
Yes.
Cathy. I don't know where she got that from, but anyway, she would talk at dinner time. Well, younger daughter is introverted, much more introverted than older daughter. And so here was an interesting routine for us. I always noticed she wanted to get me one-on-one, and it was a little bit challenging at times with older sister around. And so we lived in a rural area, but just because we love God's world and we love horses and dogs and things like that, and you have to get outside the city to do that, right? So that meant we had to take our trash off to the dumpster, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
And so dumpster time was Elizabeth's time. She would get in the front seat back when your kid could ride in the front seat before all the airbags. She would ride up front with me and ask some penetrating questions about life and tell me what's going on at school, things like that. So when they're younger, it's easier to find some of those routines. But when they become aliens, that's my word for middle school,
Yes.
How do you find those routines then and get them to share with you and you share with them and seed into them authentic faith?
I love that you brought that up because it does change around the middle school phases and high school phases. You can tell that the relationship begins to shift. I have not parented middle schoolers and high schoolers, so I always feel like that's important to say because I know that I don't know what I'm talking about.
And there's no way you can know until you experience
That's
it.
absolutely true. But I was a high school teacher. I volunteer in high school ministries. I've been leading middle school and high school girls small groups for 17 years now. So being around teenagers, I observe things, most of which make me confident that I don't want to parent teenagers ever. So if you figure out...
Newsflash, Kristen. I don't know how to say this to you gently. You're gonna have to. We actually enjoyed it when our daughters moved into high school because it meant they were through with middle school.
That's true.
And I can remember the movie Mean Girls came out.
That is the best movie.
Yeah, when our older daughter... Oh, yeah, I've seen it. I walked through the room. Okay, it comes out while daughter one is in middle school, right? And I walked through the room and I was struck by something one of the characters said. So I stopped and I said, why are we watching this stuff? And she said, Dad, this is the way it is. I said, no way. She said, yes, it is. And my wife said, sit down. And so I did. And from that moment on, man, I was such a better dad to her. I already loved up on her and what have you. But just knowing that there are bullies like that in middle school, that I knew biologically your body's changing and what have you. But how do you deal with all the emotional cosmic shifts? I mean, because every day the world stops turning, it seems like. How do you get some authentic faith in there?
Well, I love talking about these phases. In the phase project in general, we've begun to really lean into especially that middle school phase that you're talking about because middle school leaders for a long time, I feel like we're telling us, hey, the middle school years matter more than you think. But when you really do peel back the covers and you start to research what's happening in their brain, what's happening in their body, what's happening in their world and their social atmosphere, it really is this critical season of life. In fact, it was interesting to me. I did a series of interviews with leaders who've worked with kids, preschoolers, teenagers. These were leaders who've given 30 years of their life to work with a particular age group and wanted to ask them questions to learn what they've discovered about working with particular age groups. But I always started those interviews by asking them to tell me about someone who influenced them. And because I was talking to leaders who worked with preschoolers and children and middle schoolers and high schoolers, I thought that their answers would come from a wide range of people who influenced them. And the big surprise to me was that I believe 100%, there may have been one I'm forgetting about, but I think 100% of them answered with someone who had influenced them in the middle school years of their life. And that began to raise a huge flag for me to go, wait, everybody's been saying middle school matters, but I'm talking to these adult leaders who are doing incredible work, and every single one of them comes back to somebody who saw them and really engaged with them in a respectful way. Absolutely. In the middle school phase when things in life just tend to be kind of a little bit dark and uncertain. And so I do think when we're parenting middle schoolers, when we're leading middle schoolers, there's something about those years as a kid's identity is shifting and moving. And even though they start to hold you off, they start to kind of distance themselves or push back away from you, you need to lean in even harder.
Yes.
So the times that I think I would identify it to lean into your middle schoolers world are actually not that different from elementary school. Whether it's mealtime, you just have to work harder to get there, or morning time, and you just have to maybe restructure it to make it more significant, or bedtime, and you just begin to make yourself available. Maybe you're folding laundry in the room or putting clothes away just to kind of be there.
What you doing?
In case they want to talk.
Right. Just a big question. What you doing?
Yeah. So lean into those moments and just fight for those moments hard. Some of them haven't really necessarily changed yet. It's just a change in the posture as a parent. And in high school, it does actually change for one primary reason, and that is oftentimes they become mobile without you. So they get a driver's license. They can drive to do their own activities. Again, they're just, especially by end of sophomore year, junior year, you're just seeing them less and less and less in terms of physical proximity. So some of those times I think do change. I had a conversation recently with Dr. Kara Powell at the Fuller Youth Institute. I love listening to her as a parent because she's a little further along in her parenting journey. And she talked about how she has changed her routine to start cooking breakfast for her kids now that her oldest has a driver's license and is away from the house, because she said breakfast became a much, much, much bigger deal in our family.
Well, it's the only time you see them all day.
That's right.
That's right. It comes home at 10 o'clock at night from ball practice or whatever, right?
Right. So sometimes I think it's just shifting and changing with the rhythm of your family to go, okay, now breakfast has sort of been a thing, but it's going to be a really big thing in a season. In the teenage years, we do actually, in the times that we talk about, make a specific time for their time. Which is basically saying if you have a high schooler, whenever they call you, you've got to drop what you're doing and answer the phone or do what you've got to do.
It's got to be job one right there. So back to the middle school years for just a second, because they're so pivotal. I mean, that's the hinge point, really. And by the way, mine were Archie and Carolyn Mosley. They're the ones who seeded into me. Those are my top two every time outside of my family of origin. So they're in middle school, their beginning peer group becomes more important. How do you have those Jesus conversations, those authentic faith conversations with kids when they're starting to pull away from you, and yet they're still little kids? And so they may be in your lap 1 minute, but then they may be, don't touch me, don't look at me, the next. How do you have those authentic faith conversations? How do you start one, or how do you interject into one?
I think that's a great question. Again, we've scripted out some illustrations of that from middle school, but it's going to be in the form of questions, I think, mostly in that phase, that you're wanting them to personalize in those years and not necessarily just repeat back. In the elementary school years, your kids are looking to you to know what is true about faith.
Rote memorization then is more important. But in middle school, I'm starting to abstract think a little bit. So
correct. So you really want to lean into some of that and give them the freedom to feel like an adult, to feel like an expert. So maybe it's just saying simple things like, can we pray about this together? When they ask them about.
So asking permission to pray.
Asking permission and saying, I hear that this is a struggle you're talking to me about at school. Can we pray about it together? And if they say, hey, I don't really want to pray about it with you, Mom, whatever. Just, okay.
I already did.
Say, well, I'm going to continue to pray about it. And you pray about it, and then let them know that you're still praying, and ask them, follow up and ask them how it's going, so that they can see that you've taken their issues seriously and that you really believe their issues matter to God. That's something you would put in your own life.
How do we as Christians respond to this whole thing of bullying, which seems to be, I know it happens in high school, but middle school seems to be the worst years for bullying. How do we as Christian parents speak into that with our children and just help them understand what's going on?
Well, that's a great question. I think so often bullying is really the result of something that's deeper and connected more to character.
Mm.
And so one of the things that we can do is to really bring it back to the issue of character, because every single person is made in the image of God.
Mm.
Every single person has value. The
Yes.
one who's being bullied, the one who is bullying, all of them have value. And that's because they were made in the image of God. And because we believe that God has sent his son to die for us and Christ has redeemed us, we're going to live out the love of Christ in a different kind of way. Because we value that everybody's made in the image of God, because we've been transformed into the character of Christ, or being transformed into the character of Christ.
Yes.
We want to bring it back to something that's relational for our children, and something that's primary, so that instead of addressing just the issue of bullying, that we can take that issue back a little bit further to say, how does this really reflect the love of Christ? Or how does this demonstrate that everybody has value because they're made in the image of God?
So there's an opportunity for us to act differently and to model that in our conversation about both the victim and the bully.
Correct.
Yeah, and to see them both. I mean, Christ didn't say we had to like them, but he did say we have to love them, right? So, how do we love a bully who's just really difficult to live with? Well,
right.
We see him or her as a child of God, and
Right.
just positioning them. And where else are kids going to get that? Because it's pile on most of the time, whether it's the victim or the bully, right? It's just pile on,
Absolutely.
and they go with the crowd. So there's a prophetic word right in the midst of that, right? That we can speak as parents.
Absolutely. I think another thing to highlight in the middle school years, if we're talking about what a parent can do to help a kid have authentic faith, you mentioned several times the shift to where peers matter more,
Yes.
and kind of turn outside of the home a little bit more. One of the biggest things that I would advocate for my own children, I hope that this is true for them one day, is that we can identify other caring adults who will really speak into their life to say the same kind of things we would say, but so we're not the only ones saying it, because your kid kind of stops, listening to everything you say exactly the same way. I mean, they're still listening, but it's just not it's not quite the same.
Not at all.
But to have another adult who's in their life who really knows them and gets them and can connect with them maybe on another level, maybe they're younger, maybe they're, I don't know, more, they're just not you. Whoever it is.
That's it. That's exactly right. You're no longer cool.
Yeah.
And so these folks are, Dad, don't walk so close.
Yeah.
I get all that, live through all that. But that's important.
Seeing them as your ally is important, because it's easy to feel threatened. Like, wait, I was your best friend. I was your number one.
Yeah. Or to get jealous of these other persons who are, I hate to say surrogate parenting, but I should say joining with you in helping your child develop an authentic faith.
Right.
I'm fond of saying it takes more than a village. It takes a village plus Jesus.
Yes.
And I think those Jesus followers are the ones that you're saying we seek out.
Right.
And help.
And identify them wherever you can find them. I think, sometimes as a parent, you can get creative and go, okay, my kid is really into, I don't know, computer programming. Okay, well then who do you know who's a computer programmer?
Yep.
Who follows Jesus, that you can connect to your kid, who can really invest in his life in the season of life where you know that it's really going to matter.
Mentoring.
Those mentoring relationships. Maybe it's somebody who's a parent and you have a kid who loves kids. They like to babysit. Well, let them go babysit for that family where you know that the parents are going to be able to really connect with your child and pour into them.
And where those Christ followers will show up. And so it's almost like a covert mission. You're surrounding your child, right?
It is a covert mission.
That's right. Because you can't let them know you're doing this overtly, right? It's got to be kind of covert.
That's right.
Well, Ms. Jones is a coder at her company, and I know you're really interested in coding. Would you like to go visit with her one day? Oh, yeah, sure. They'll never, but they'll thank you years later, right? Just like we thank our parents. When our daughters were going through those middle school and high school years, I found myself apologizing to my mom and dad. Because I then could empathize with what I'd put them through.
I think most parents are holding their breath, waiting for their children to have teenagers so they will apologize.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I've said. I've reminded my wife of numerous times, hey, they will have children one day and all this will come back.
Yes.
Kristen Ivy is the executive director of messaging at Orange, and that's the name of the company, and it comes from Christ is the light of the world, which is yellow, and the home is the heart, right? And so those two blend as they intersect, and that's what they do at Orange. She's director of the Phase Project. And Kristen, I think you have something special for Faith Positive Nation.
Absolutely. Yes. If you would like to follow along or learn more about what we've been doing at the Face Project, or you just want a few resources to help you in your parenting, we do have a link at phaseguides.com with /faith positive. So you could go over there and you'll get free resources, free download samples from the books and timeline of where your kid is in the phases to help you connect with your kid in whatever season of parenting you're in right now.
Awesome. And that's phaseguides.com/faith positive. And what you want to do in case you're on a treadmill, walking the dog, or on the morning commute right now, please don't have an accident or break a tooth. It's in the episode copy. So we've got that there for you. All you have to do is. Kristen Ivy, Faith Positive Nation, always wants to know from our guest, what's your favorite Bible verse? So do you have one?
One favorite Bible verse.
One favorite Bible verse.
I am really bad at favorites, but I'll give you this that has been front and center in my mind, I guess, for the last few years. And it comes from a book that might not get a lot of play, so I'm not sure.
Oh, good. Because we've had enough Romans 8:28, Philippians 4:13. Nothing against those guests who've said that, but it'd be nice to go to Micah or somewhere, you know?
It's Malachi.
Malachi.
Actually,
see, that was pretty close.
Malachi 4:6, it says he will turn the hearts of parents to their children and the hearts of children to their parents. And Luke actually opens the New Testament playing on that same theme with John the Baptist as he prepares the way for Jesus. And I think for me, it's something of a life verse to say, as we prepare the way for Jesus to come into the lives and hearts of children, that begins by turning the hearts of parents to their children and children to their parents.
Click it. Kristen, you are amazing. We thank you so much. We pray God's blessings on you and the ministry there at Orange, on Matt, who must be an amazing husband, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, because you have 3 amazing children. We pray God's blessings on all of you. Thank you so much for the gift of your time and wisdom today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Faith Positive Radio, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Suggest guests and ask questions when you email Dr. Joey at info@getpositive.today. And be sure to get your free gift of the 5 positive business conversations to have today coaching program at getpositive.today. Until next time, may God bless you with everything your heart can hope for and more than your mind can imagine.